Does Nissan's new crossover have what it takes to reach the top of its glass? Let's find out. I'm Jay, and this is Modern Motoring. Welcome to the 2025 all-new 4th generation Nissan Murano. Let's start with some baseline numbers. So gone is the old 3.5-liter V6 with a CVT, thankfully, and it's been replaced with a 2-liter Turbo 4, very trendy for the industry right now. And we now have 241 horsepower, 260 pound-feet of torque, and it's run through a 9-speed automatic. All-wheel drive does come standard. And just as a comparison for power figures from the previous generation, that was 260 horsepower, 240 pound-feet of torque. So we've lost 19 horsepower, but we've picked up 20 pound-feet of torque. A quick touch on fuel consumption because it is significantly better. Last generation, which was the 3rd generation, came in at 10.4 liters per 100 kilometers combined, and now we're down to 9.7. Again, I think emission regulations had a little bit to do with that. Quick disclaimer as you watch the video, this is a pre-production vehicle, so it's pretty close to what you'll see on the roads and on dealership lots, but it is not exactly 100%. Let's start off with driving dynamics, and this new Murano is significantly refined as far as smoothness and comfort and noise, vibration, and harshness go. Nothing was really wrong with the old Murano, but you felt it and you heard it, and it was a little on the sluggish side, despite it having similar power numbers here. But the engineers at Nissan have done such a good job in providing this sense of serenity in a non-luxury vehicle, and we'll dip into more on that near the end as to competition, specifically the QX50 from its luxury division Infiniti. But I gotta say, I've been out here for a couple of hours with the Murano in Franklin County, surrounding areas, Tennessee, and lots of twisty and windy roads, lots of straightaways. It's just such a wonderful drive route, and it lets me really open up the Murano and see what it's capable of, as well as take it around twists and turns at slower speeds. And it feels good. It feels flat. It feels planted. And overall, Nissan's going for this upscale premium experience throughout with the Murano, not just the interior and the materials, but on the drive feel as well. And I think they've done a really good job. They've found a way to still keep it somewhat lively, even though it's got a smaller amount of displacement. But the drive quality is so much better than the old Murano. Right now I'm going up a hill with lots of twists and turns, and I'm not fighting with my body to stay centered in the driver's seat. And now I'm going down the other side of the hill, and again, I'm not forcing my body to stop leaning one way or the other. So it's a pretty good testament here. Quick touch on the seats. They are the zero gravity seats, very Nissan-esque, and they've made the backs of the front seat thinner so you get more rear seat space, but I don't really notice any difference in quality here. Still very comfortable, still very supportive. Back to the driving side, as I keep going around these really nice gradual sweeping twists and turns, I realize that a lot of people won't be doing this. This is definitely an urban-based vehicle. Know that in a straight line it does very well, and minimal road noise coming through. Part of that very upscale premium approach that Nissan's taking here. Very little oversteer, very little understeer, and pretty good for this class of vehicle. And you know, jumping around a little bit, Nissan's going up against the Blazer, and it's going up against the Sorento, and to a lesser degree, the Mazda CX-70, although dimensionally the 70 is huge because it runs off the 90, just minus that third row. But I think it's one of the front runners in class for everyday city driving and a little bit of rural driving, as well as highway/freeway driving. It does an exceptional job. Getting up to highway speeds, no issue at all. I'm so happy there's a 9-speed geared transmission as opposed to that very drony, very dull CVT. It wasn't bad, it wasn't good, but the 9-speed is significantly better here. A quick touch on the exterior, because design is very subjective. So know that the Murano has grown both height-wise as well as width-wise. Still runs off the same platform, so your wheelbase is still the same as the 3rd generation, but it's been cleaned up quite a bit. There's a lot more of the simplicity in design here. It's not as busy as the old Murano. And the old Murano looked great. I thought those boomerang headlights, the nice swooping lines, and a lot of flare in the rear end looked good for the old one, but here Nissan's going very modern, very thin lines, very clean lines. They don't quite have that pronounced V-motion grille, but there's some LED lights very strategically patterned up front to mimic some sort of variation of the V-motion grille. There's a long light bar along the rear, which frames the vehicle quite nicely. And overall, I like the exterior design. There's not too much happening, and I think if they're looking for premium slash upscale, not quite luxury with the Infiniti side of things, let Infiniti have that, but it's a very clean, modern, upscale design that I think stands out in the segment. Inside, we've got a couple of large 12.3-inch screens, one for your infotainment, one for your instrument cluster. On the good side, Apple CarPlay takes up nearly the entire screen. There's a fixed bar on the far left for your shortcut. One little drawback is that the HVAC icons are a little on the smaller side, but again, with the Google voice controls, we can do some basic functions. For example, hey Google, turn on the heated steering wheel.
Sure, turning on the steering wheel heater.
Which is good, nice and great. Hey Google, set the driver's seat warmer to 1.
All right, changing the seat heater for the driver to 1.
So you don't have to fish around and poke around blindly. It's one quick voice control. And I gotta say, the Google Assistant is pretty responsive, pretty quick, and it just has that very accurate amount of listening, and the response again is super quick. Just below that in the center stack, it's very Nissan Ariya-esque. So you do get a couple of, not quite hard touch, but non-screen based controls. So your fan speed, the amount of temperature, your rear defroster, as well as your front one, and the recirc of the air. So sure, it's nice and great that you can do a couple of things. Maybe I'm just showing my age, but I'd prefer a lot more physical controls. Wireless charging comes standard, and there's a big bay for that right there. Got your couple of cup holders, little storage bin, and the gear selector is a series of hard touch buttons in a row, just like we have in the Nissan Armada. That video went up a few days ago. It's a 2-spoke steering wheel, and it's a flat bottom for ingress egress. Kind of squared off at the top. It's not perfectly round, and that's because there's a large screen for your instrument cluster, and you can see everything through it. My one little personal fraction of a percent irk with it is that it, for me, doesn't go down far enough. It goes in far enough, and Platinums get the power tilt and telescopic, but I'd like it to go down just like another inch or so, just as far as me being one of 8 billion people in the world. Instrument cluster can be configured a couple of different ways, still fairly easy to get through as far as obtaining different types of information. Over to the left of that, we have our heated steering wheel, our head-up display, which is not standard, trim dependent between SV, SL, and Platinum. Your parking brake auto hold is also down there. Door panels look good, door panels feel good, a lot of self-touch materials here, and it's definitely a huge upgrade versus the old Murano. Panoramic sunroof comes on the SL and Platinum as well. Top trims do get the cooled seats as well as massaging seats. So definitely a good move by Nissan to jam a bunch of value in here. Let's take a quick peek into the rear seats of the all-new Murano. So my driver's seat is in my driving position, and as such, there's a lot of space back here. Now again, Nissan has said they reduced the thickness of the seat back by a little bit. That gives you a little more space for your rear passengers. So again, as you can see, I've got about my own hand's worth of space back here, and there's a fair amount of space up here as well. Yes, there is a panoramic sunroof on the SL as well as the Platinum, but it doesn't really impede any of my headspace. Top trim Platinum, which is what we have here, has 3-stage heated seats back here, 2 USB ports as well, and you have, I'm not sure if you can see these, let me get the door closed a touch, and hopefully you can see this. It's the retractable shade, and not too bad, and yes, a little bit of the ambient lights come through just along the top of the panel here. You got a cup holder, a tiny bit of storage, and a nice textured pattern, which I'm sure you could hear through the microphone, and nice soft touch materials here as well. There is a folding center armrest back here, and you get 2 cup holders and a tiny little bit of storage. Not really sure what you'd put in there, but you could put something. Now I'm going to sit behind the passenger, and it's a little further back than my seating position, and I still have a fair amount of space as well. So rear seat comfort is pretty good back here. Comfort scores well back here. I have space for my feet, space for my legs. I got a little bit of arm space to move around, and again, there's a lot of head space as well. Quick touch on standard safety, and highlights include lane departure warning, automatic emergency braking, rear cross traffic alert, blind spot monitoring, high beam assist, rear automatic braking. Now on the SV, you get the ProPilot Assist, and on the SL and Platinum, you get the ProPilot Assist 1.1, which is just a slightly advanced version of that. Cargo space comes in at 931.6 liters with the rear seats up. Fold those rear seats down, and that goes all the way up to 1,798 liters. Smartly, on the cosmetic side, Nissan has put the trunk release just above the logo. Let's touch on pricing and competition, and then we'll get wrapped up. So the SV trim comes in around $47,000 MSRP Canadian. Go up to the SL, and it's in the $50,000 range, and you go all the way to the top, which is the Platinum, and that brings in around $55,000. The interesting note is that the QX50, which is very similar to what we have here, starts in the $55,000 range. So you can either get an entry-level Infiniti Q50, or you can get a top-of-the-line Murano. There are similarities, but I think the Murano will take a lot more sales than expected off the QX50 from Infiniti, because it's so well done in here, and from the drive feel, drive quality, the materials here in the Platinum trim, borderline luxury, if not dipping into the actual luxury world itself. It feels so good. You have all the technology here as well, not on all trims, but on the SL you get a fair amount, and then on the Platinum you get everything. So I think the biggest competitor for this is going to be the Infiniti QX50. Nissan is looking at the Chevrolet Blazer, the Kia Sorento, Mazda CX-70 on the fringes of competition. When the Murano came out, initially the Ford Edge was the biggest competitor, and now that the Edge is gone and the segments have gone a little peculiar as far as shape goes, not every single, let's say, mid-size crossover has very similar dimensions. Some are significantly larger, some are significantly smaller. So I think that the Murano is well positioned as far as being able to dip into maybe some of the smaller mid-size crossovers, as well as some of the larger ones. Two final things: the fuel tank is around 70 liters, and the towing capacity is up to 1,500 pounds when properly equipped. So just something to keep in mind if you are looking at a Nissan Murano. And that's going to wrap it up for the first drive of the all-new 4th generation 2025 Nissan Murano. If you have any questions on what you've seen, let me know in the comments. I am more than happy to engage in respectful conversation. I invite you to join our social media platforms. We are on all of the major ones. I thank you, and I appreciate you, and without you, there is no modern motoring. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.